Hey guys, Steve Moran here with the second ever episode of Foresight TV, where we are having conversations about the intersection of senior living and leadership, and we are going to drift in all kinds of areas. Today, I am really excited about my guests. I'm always excited about the guests. It's really fun to be able to do this because I get to pick the people I have on, and I am bringing on people who have something to say. And so we're going to run this TV show every single week on Friday afternoons. Or Friday mornings, Pacific Coast. So 11 to about 11:30, and we'd love to have comments if you're watching once we bring the guests on. And if you've got ideas for things we should be talking about, questions we should be addressing, I would love to hear those. You can leave them in the comments. You can send me a message through LinkedIn. You can email me, all kinds of things. So I've got two great guests today. I've got Myron Kowal, who is the founder and CEO of R-Care. They are a great sponsor, and they have great call systems for senior living. And then my good friend and buddy and sometimes partner in business crime and leadership crime, Denise Boudreau-Scott, who is going to go and join us. So I'm going to bring Myron on first for a couple minutes, and we're going to have a conversation.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Myron, how are you? I love you. You are the best dressed guy at every conference. You pull it off so well. There's my propeller hat. I don't know. I probably won't leave it on because it's sort of too much of a drip. But it somehow doesn't have the same class that your look does.
If I didn't have a hat on, I would absolutely feel naked. I really would.
Yeah, I get that. And show off your pumpkin there first. I got to do there, and then we'll get to the serious conversation here.
Your pumpkin here going on. I asked Steve earlier last time he carved a pumpkin. I had a lot of fun doing that.
That looks like fun. I got to figure. I wonder if I could carve one with a coffee cup in it. I'm not very artistic, but that could be pretty cool. So, we were talking a little bit before we went on air, and I just sort of like to have your general impressions about two things really, the impact that you're seeing from your perspective as a technology provider. So actually, let's do 30 seconds on what your company or what R-Care does. But let me ask you the first question. So your perspective on how you're seeing the senior living industry change. And then I'd actually be curious a little bit to talk about what impact it's having specifically on your business.
So, first of all, we're in the nurse call business. We manufacture wireless and hardwired nurse call systems almost exclusively for the elder care industry. So assisted living and skilled care environments and so on. And we have distributors across the United States, some 78 at this stage of the game. So all our sales and service and those kinds of things are local, which is always a good thing. What's changed? Our sales force has been stymied. So with 78 distributors around the country with different kinds of various infection rates of COVID, whether people are able to go and visit with end user customers, and this is also trade show season. It's not only the national trade show season that we would be involved with like Argentum and ACA and Cal at this stage of the game, but all the regional trade shows and so on. So everybody's become virtual, and we're participating. We've yet to receive or be able to glean what the response or a return is on that participation. But at first blush, it's not as good as being there in person. You see your old friends at the trade shows. You see what your competitors are doing. You get to see who's walked into their booths and those kinds of things. And I miss it. I miss it an awful lot. The effect that's going to have on businesses is disseminating information to the end user customers, to the providers. How are they going to get to know what's new and what's good? It's a question.
Yeah, I agree. I missed the show I did participate a number of hours in the Argentum conf last week, and I found, of course, I'm not an operator, but I'm not a vendor either. And so I had a number of nice conversations, both with friends who were vendors and actually a couple of leaders that I hadn't met before that I reached out to and had some nice chats, and we'll do some follow up. One of them actually led to a great interview that I did earlier this week that I'll publish. So it's been it's been really, really tough. So are you seeing a shift in how people look at technology through the pandemic?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of things. First of all, the things that were most important to them before and after are kind of switched. Everybody thought that they needed Wi-Fi before, but it wasn't all that important. Now their Wi-Fi is becoming their lifeline, their way to communicate. I mean, we've got webinars and seminars, and now that translates itself to residents who want to use those things and meet with their families and all of that stuff. So all of that's ramped up a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, listen, great. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to bring Denise on. You're welcome to stay if you like. We're going to sort of shift our topic of conversation now, and we are going to talk a little bit about culture and what's changed in culture. So Denise Boudreau-Scott is the president of a company called Drive. We are close friends, and we have done some leadership development stuff together. So Denise, you obviously have seen your business change radically, because you're like this master keynote speaker. So you were doing what, 15, 20 conferences where you keynote a year, and that's almost all gone. You're still doing some virtual, right?
Well, I'm doing it virtually. So it's changed to the virtual rather than being in person, which for an extrovert who likes to hug people is really not good. But it's the making the best of what we have. Yeah. And then clients too, that shifted. So we would go on site with clients a lot. So that shifted to virtual. But that's been working okay.
Yeah. So one of the big questions that I have for you that I'd like to spend a little time chatting about is that as I try to talk to half a dozen or a dozen significant leaders, who are leading multiple big groups of people every week. And one of the challenges that I have seen, that I hear from people, is that there's just this huge amount of fatigue going on. That it feels like it's never going to end. That families are starting to, of course, we're complaining about not being able to have access. I think, and the families' complaints are often legitimate, but many times operators don't really have any control because of their regulations, and so, but it comes down on them. And it's like, for the first few weeks, there was almost a moment of almost some excitement because you were fighting this big battle, but now it's just exhausting. So do you have any thoughts about how I'm just burning out?
Well, I think first of all, the fact of recognizing it. And so that recognizing that that team members, that really everybody, it's, certainly people that are providing the actual hands-on care, but also some of the people that are behind the scenes, I think we forget about, that they might be working in finance or HR. I mean, everybody's doing so much more than they've ever done, and the emotional toll on them is so much higher than, it's like nothing they've ever dealt with before. And so, we have organizations, we have clients that had used their EAP, their employee assistant program, to actually proactively not wait for people to reach out to them, but actually set up counseling times via Zoom to work with their team members, which I think is great. Some people have chaplains that are part of their organization that can provide that role. If you have somebody on your team, and it depends on the organization, some people have folks that can do this work, and other people might have to bring somebody in from the outside. But I think it's something that we cannot ignore. I mean, I hear over and over again people using the term PTSD to describe this reaction to what's happened. And as you said, the other part is who knows how much longer this goes on, and that we can't just a hero sign on the front lawn and a pizza party is not enough for people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hero signs and everything, I don't want to be down on them, right? Because that was the right thing to do at the time. The problem is that after you've seen a hero sign for 180 days, every day walking in the building, it sort of becomes noise. And we've talked about this before. Beautiful break rooms are wonderful at first, but then they just become the break room over time. And so how do you do that? So I'm going to actually, Myron, I want to come back to you. Are you seeing kind of fatigue with either the people that you're working with or inside your own staff?
Actually, the frustration is probably the biggest thing. When you have salespeople and support people who can't get in or looking for permission, there's just an awful lot of frustration. And that's probably one of the things that we're dealing with right now. It's like, what can we do? And a lot of times, from a regulatory point of view, people can't answer that question. They're telling you, we can tell you what you can't do. These are the things you can't do. What can we do to help? It's tough.
So, Denise, I come to you as your good friend, and I'm going to start by saying I feel so blessed because this isn't my situation, but I come to you and I say, I'm an executive director or regional, and I say, I don't know whether I can keep doing this anymore. Every day I wake up worried that team's going to get sick. I have a team member I'm going to have a team member who passes away. I'm going to have a resident who gets sick, or I'm going to have a big blossom infections. Can you give me some specific things I can actually do to make it to be able to? I don't like the word cope generally, but maybe to cope with it is the right word in this case.
So I think leaders really need to take care of themselves. We love to kind of use this phrase of like servant leadership and constantly do for others and so forth. And to me, it's a time that you can't give somebody if you got nothing in your bucket. And so if people aren't taking a moment for themselves to recharge. And so people might say, well, I don't have time for that. Or, how do I do that? I tell people maybe it's, if you have kids at home, and I had this when I was an administrator, my kids were at home, they're twins running around like crazy. I get to work, as soon as you hit the door, things are nuts. Could it be the 5 minutes before you actually go into your community or your home to go to work, right? You're sitting in the car maybe for 5 minutes that you can do some deep rests, that you can maybe, I'd say find something that works for you, and throw everything at it. Try a bunch of different things. So I love to meditate. People say to me, I can't meditate, but there's apps that have 5 minute, 10-minute meditations on it. Might you be able to do that in your car before you go home or for the day, or before you go into the office for the day? Might you be able to journal some of what you're experiencing for a few minutes? Some people, that is the right thing to do then. I write down three things every day that I'm grateful for. That takes less than a minute. And when you get into that habit, you start seeing a lot more of the things that you are grateful for around you. So there are so many different ways that people can kind of just recharge. And I think quickly, it's not, most people aren't taking a week off. So it's the opportunity, kind of how do we sneak this into our day? And the other part of that is when we do that with our team, it also helps us have more compassion for them, and they have more compassion for the people that they serve. So this bit of being a little bit selfish to take care of yourself so that you then can give to others is, I think, would serve people well right now.
So I think those are great. I do a lot of journaling as well. I have tried meditating. I'm not a very good meditator exactly, but my spiritual life is real important to me. So I journal, I read scripture.
Prayer, meditation.
I wish I could tell you I do that all day, every day, pray every day. And I get exercise. And I will tell you so I do a run walk routine 3 days a week. And like this morning, I had calls starting at 7:30. So I was actually out of bed at 5:30 so I could get out with the dog. And it just, I will tell you, when at 5:30 when I'm laying there in bed, I'm like, oh man, I don't really want to do this. And it's like, no, I got to do it. And by the time I'm back an hour later, I mean, I still feel good for having done it. So Myron, what do you do to keep fired up?
So I have an old rail trail park that runs behind my office, and about 3 days a week, I take that 15 to 20-minute walk down the nature trail, and it is amazing. I mean, I'll leave the office with all these kinds of things with heavy burden, and when I come back, I've got a little bit more skip in my step, and it works every time.
I would add too that with this too, we have to think that, I tend to go to the positive, and that we also have to think that what people are dealing with is, just this tremendous weight on them and the burden on them. And that it's also okay to feel how you're feeling. I remember years ago when I have twin boys, and when they were babies, I went back to being an administrator when they were 4 months old, and I was completely overwhelmed, not a surprise. And someone said to me, you're feeling overwhelmed. You have newborn twins that scream all day and all night. You work all day at a stressful job. You're overwhelmed, and you're feeling exactly how you should be feeling. And so I think some of that also, to kind of just, I sometimes do that to myself too, just kind of give myself some grace. It's okay for me to be in this spot. But hopefully as a team, we can support each other, right? We have a culture that we support each other when somebody's feeling that way, and holding each other up.
Yeah. And the one other thing that we haven't really talked about, but one of the things I do, and this may not work for everybody, but one of the things I do if I get to the point where I'm just kind of feeling down and discouraged, I pick up my telephone and I call people. Remember, I called you like 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, Denise, and I said, I'm kind of feeling down, so I just need to talk to some people. We just, it wasn't like you did therapy or anything with me, but it was helpful to do that. I want to hit a couple of comments here. So lots of people saying they miss the conferences. Absolutely agree with that. So many people I hang out with 6, 7, 8, 10 times a year that the best I do at Zoom is better than nothing. Nancy, I really like this idea that you've got to find something to laugh about. It might be as simple as going to YouTube and looking for some comedians to look at and laugh about. And you've got to be so careful. So Denise, I want to actually check 2 things that are really important with you. The first is that, so we've talked a lot about self-care, but I look at my team as an executive director or a regional, or maybe even as a CEO or COO, and I know they're suffering, and I don't really know what to do about it. How do I help my team?
I think you ask them that. You ask the person, can you help them? That you care about them, you care about what they care about, which is very often their family that they're caring for at home, and ask them how you can help. And it might be different answers for different people. So, in the beginning of this, there were organizations that, like Parker, our buddies in New Jersey, they did a great job of asking their team members, what do they need when there was a whole shortage of everything. So they tried to get people that they need, that people needed, like toilet paper. I mean, it sounds silly, but at that time, right? So, but we can continue those conversations to say, what do you need? And there's a lot of people working a lot of overtime right now, working a lot of hours, maybe even just, the opportunity for a certain day off instead of the normal day off. Moving that might be a benefit to them. Who knows? I mean, who knows? Maybe it's the shifting of hours because they've got kids at home with school. And I know this is not easy stuff, right? It's balancing all this and so forth. But I think just to come at it with what I would want to do and what you might want to do might be completely different. And so what each person needs is going to be slightly different. But that fact, even you're asking, showing somebody that you care is huge, right? Everyone wants to know that their boss, right, the people they work with, care about them, and that's one way to show it, is to simply ask that question and act on whatever it is that you're finding out from them. But I think we tend to do a lot of, I see people trying so hard to appreciate their staff, and so we tend to do a lot of things like pizza parties or Taco Tuesday, all that, and that's great. It's nice, but and Steve and I, we talk about this a lot, but that's such a small percentage of people. I mean, that's 6% of people consider that a means of feeling valued. You're missing out on over 90% of your staff don't consider any of those things something that make them feel more valued. So we have to be really aware of that. How are we making people feel valued for the work that they do, cared for at this time, and nurtured.
Yeah, and I keep. What I keep, Nancy, I love this idea. You send handwritten cards saying thank you, and the key, and this is something Denise, you of course talk about all the time, is that a generic thank you for what you're doing is great, but I watched how you did this thing. I'll just give you an example out of my own life, because this happened this morning. We have a brand new writer that's helping us out that just started a couple of weeks ago, Leanne, and she wrote her first article for us, and it was just terrific, right? It was really, really good. But that's actually not good enough. And so when we had our team meeting, I just talked a little bit about how great it was, and I did it. First off, I did it because it was true and it was the right thing to do. But those are the kinds of things that make such a difference. And so I keep thinking, if you've got people that you're needing to show up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a box of pizzas or donuts, and not just drop them off, but actually sit and have a conversation with your people. Yeah. Even if you really do it with at one shift, in less than a day, everybody's going to know you've done that. And that's really, really cool. So,
yeah. And the connection, I think.
Myron, your thoughts on this?
I'm just thinking, well, first of all, it's those little notes. Denise got me thinking an awful lot here. It's like, okay, I'm not doing enough. I've got to do some more. And so it's been for me, I'm thinking call to action. Myron, get busy, because, we've had some things. We've had people kind of implode a little bit, and it's been an emotional toll. And I really sometimes at a loss of how to deal with some of these things. And maybe, last Friday we did a barbecue. We did put some shrimps on the barbie out back behind the office, and everybody, and we took a long extended lunch, and we all had a good time because it was the last fun day of summer. So that was good, but I'm thinking it's maybe not enough. Maybe we've got to do a little more.
Yeah. And
people just go ahead.
I was just thinking too, Steve, I think one of the things too that is an opportunity that's missed a lot is the opportunity to connect the work people are doing to the real kind of vision of what's happening.
Yes.
And so we miss that sometimes, and especially now it's so busy, and we wind up in a lot of tasks. There's a lot of rule changes and regulations. And so sometimes we miss that bigger picture. But, I do some executive coaching, and I was talking to this VP of HR a couple weeks ago, and his team, and they have 60 or so nursing homes, and his team is working on something for scheduling standards for the homes. And, he said it's been tough and so forth, trying to get them excited about the project. And we talked about the fact that this project, when you get scheduling figured out and you have less people floating between places and working, you're bringing in less agency, all of that is cutting down on the people coming in to the organization, which is literally saving lives right now. And so this project that you're working on fixing scheduling, which might seem like a financial thing, is actually literally helping to save lives if you can cut down the amount of touch points that residents are having with people with different people, right? They have the same consistent people. And the customer experience, that experience as the residents having is so much better, and so is the staff experience when they really get to know, we're constantly, consistently working with the same person instead of a lot of people floating around. So that's just an example of making that connection for people, and I don't think they would have, I know they didn't see that until he brought it to their attention.
I think the other thing that gets missed, and this becomes probably a perspective thing that maybe I can offer, is one of the best ways to feed your soul is to help other people. I used to, every spring break, I did for about a dozen years, I take anywhere from a dozen to 4 dozen kids, teenagers, to Mexico to build a church or a school for 10 days. And I had to do all the logistics. I had some help, but I had to do all the logistics. I had to be the first person up in the morning and the last person to bed every night. And I was responsible. And it was a lot different then because we didn't have cell phones. And so we talked to home once or twice, and we were eating local and sleeping on the ground and showering with coffee cans, dumping water overhead out of dirty water, and it was really a challenge. But I will tell you, I'd come back exhausted, feeling like I needed to sleep. But I will tell you, I never felt better in my life. It was the best kind of exhaustion because I knew I had changed lives. And so my big plea would be that to remember that you're doing this for a purpose, and that every time you go have shrimp on the Barbie, Myron, with your people, it's not just about entertaining them. You're actually changing people's lives and making them better. Every time you work on that schedule, and you're making people's lives better. So I just huge. So Denise, you in particular, you have a couple of resources that you are making available for people. Can you talk a little bit about, I'd actually like to have you talk for just a minute. You got 2 things that I'm really excited about. You've actually got a course. And then you've also got a book. And so why don't you just talk a little bit about both of those and maybe where people can find those?
Sure. I'll drop the links in the comments. We have a course called Fearless in the Face of Crisis, which at the beginning of this, I sort of felt this tremendous amount of guilt that I'm an administrator. I should be out there doing something, and I'm doing nothing. And so I thought, what can I do to help? And so we have 40 years of research that's been done and that shows what makes an exemplary leader. And we took that and said, how do we adapt that for times of crisis? And so we took all this information, adapted it to times of crisis, put it into short videos, because I know people don't have an hour to sit down and watch a course. So there's short little snippets, like 7-8 minute videos. And each one has a behavior that takes less than 5 minutes a day. And that was really important to me because I thought I never had time in the normal times, and I can't imagine right now. And so it was really important to me that it'd be something that people can incorporate into their normal daily routine, but twist things up a little bit. Like Myron just said, you got me thinking, and so forth. And that's really what this is about. It's research-based because I like data. I don't want it to be fluff. So it's all research-based. And we've gotten just the most beautiful feedback. I read you the other one, Steve, the other day, that email that came in from a CEO that took it, and his administrator took it, and now she's having the department heads take it. And someone called it life-changing. And honestly, it's the work that I'm proudest that I've ever put out there, because I feel like it's so good, not only work-wise, but that people are using it in, quote unquote, real life too. Because good leadership stuff is just good people stuff. So that's Fearless in the Face of Crisis, and there's CEUs with it and all that. But the most important part is it's making a difference, that people are using the information immediately, and it's not something that you can't use. And people have said to me, well, there's so much going on there. People are so busy. It's been fascinating to me. A lot of the people that have bought the course are people that have been really hard hit. So we had a woman that lost 50% of her residents to COVID. And yeah, I know. And she's a friend of mine and a beautiful soul. And I called her up to say thank you and just ask how she was doing. And she said, you know what? I show up at work and I kind of don't even know what direction to go. And I feel like this gives me direction. This gives me the exact next step that I can take when I don't know what to do. And so that's the course. And then the book is quick, Simple. I'm into quick and simple. I don't believe in fluff. Quick, simple, 65 actions that you can take for recruitment and retention. A lot of people really struggling right now with both of those things, and they're obviously related. And so it's 65 quick ideas, not pages and pages of stuff to read through, but sort of a paragraph for each one of those 65 ideas, the why and the what you can do. And it is actually a compilation of, we had a course that we did that we had, I don't know, probably 2,000 people go through, that was 21 hours long. And we took all of that information, sort of all the handouts, the tips, whatever, and put it into this little book, 65 things. It's an ebook, and I'll drop the link for that one as well. And for $7, if you get one idea out of it, it's, it's
Yep.
oh my gosh, right? It's
Good deal.
Exactly. So I'm going to, Myron, give me 1 second. I'm going to come to you because I want to kind of wrap up with you. But Craig posted this. One thing that's contributing to fatigue within communities is the process of scheduling family visits and regular rescheduling every time there's an employee resident illness or worse, or a positive test result. And so this fatigue is just a constant change of this constant state of change that you just never feel like you can get in. And then that gets compounded, right? Because you got all these, every day it's like the regulations are changing. And Craig, that is just such an important thing. And I think that things like the tool that Denise has is why we're doing that. And it's really why we're talking about things here, is we want to be part of the solution. So much of what I want to say to you is that, you don't ever forget that you're changing the lives, not only of the elders that you care for, but you're changing the lives of these frontline workers who are putting their lives on the line every day, and the families of both of the workers and of the residents. And it's really an amazing thing. So Myron, you get the last word. How do we find our care? What should we know? Talk to us.
Our care. I don't know where that noise came from. But again, we have 78 distributors across the United States, 38 in Canada, a few in Latin America. We're all over the place. And let's see, maybe about 1,300 homes, facilities, communities throughout the U.S. So to all those communities that we're in, thanks for being customers. But, what's the soldier on type of thing? We've got a long way to go. I don't think this thing has got, I don't know that we're even halfway through, but we've got to keep going. We just got to keep doing it.
Yeah. So thank you very much for both of you. I'm going to actually move you off. I'm going to talk for one more second. And again, thanks for joining. My last word to you is I'm already really excited about next week. I have got Michael Owens, who is the founder and creative genius behind the Senior Living Innovation Forum. His life, his conference business has been turned upside down, and so he's going to join us and talk about that. And along with him, I've got my good friend Jack York, who is getting ready to do a telethon to raise money for his #1 cool pet project. And we may have a couple of other guests beyond, not quite sure, to the telethon. So again, thank you very much for joining us. If you liked it, if you have comments about what we're doing, please take a moment just right now, even if you're watching the recording, and drop your comments in. We'll be watching the comments, and we will be back again at 11 a.m. Pacific on LinkedIn for the Foresight Live TV show. Bye-bye.